Once we've achieved an even amount of chip exposure and strip, we're then ready to proceed on to the 80 grit turbos. We do this step to remove the scratches from the 30 grits previously done to expose the chip and the strip. The next step in the process is to use the FG300E outfitted with the 80 grit diamond blade to blend the edges in with the field area. Before we can begin the next process, we vacuum the surface thoroughly of all dust. The next step in the process is to apply the epoxy resin in the form of a grout coat. We do this with a steel trowel and then sprinkle marble dust, or ATF, onto the surface. We then use a buffer to buff the sand into the pores so that we get full filling of the holes that are in the surface. After letting the grout coat dry for a minimum of 8 hours, we begin wet cutting with the 100 grit terrazzo pads. Once we've removed all of the epoxy grout coat and all the scratches from the 80 grit turbos, we thoroughly vacuum the surface to remove all residual dust and diamonds.
You'll notice after the 24 grit turbo, the scratches are very aggressive in the surface of the zinc strip. Then after the 80 grit turbo, you'll notice they become finer. And then finally, after the 100 terrazzo, you'll see that the scratches are at an acceptable profile.
The next step in the process is to cut the floor wet using the 200 grit reds pad. Once we're sure that we've removed all the scratches from the 100 grit terrazzo, we then vacuum the surface thoroughly. The next step in the process is to cut the floor wet using the 400 grit reds pads to remove the scratches from the 200 grit. Once we're sure that we've removed all scratches, we thoroughly vacuum the surface.